about to earn pay here.
Boy, howdy.
Will you CC me on that?
No, it locks it back.
I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. The next order of business we have is, you ready to go, Kit?
Yes, I am.
All right. RZN 09-3271, Sale Barn Campus Crest LLC 562, an ordinance rezoning that property described in the rezoning petition RZN 09-3271 for approximately 8.87 acres located at the old Washington County Sale Barn north and east of 11th Avenue and Government Avenue from I-1 heavy commercial light industrial to DG downtown general.
Thank you, Mayor. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the zone classification following described property is hereby changed as follows. From I-1 heavy commercial light industrial to downtown general as shown and described on the attached exhibits A and B. Section 2, that the official zoning map of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas is hereby amended to reflect the zoning change provided in Section 1 above.
Jeremy?
Place the map on the screen for you for context. This property contains a little under 9 acres. It has frontage onto 11th Street, Dunn Avenue, National Street, and Government Avenue. It's about 500 feet south of Martin Luther King Boulevard. You can see the dashed lines. That's actually our future trail plan is indicated there. The light blue, roughly the middle of the screen, is the I-1 zoning district. The boundaries of this particular property to the north, there's Main Street Center. It's round about where the co-op is located. You can see the old railroad spur that heads off from the north. To the west is zoned RMF 24, which is residential multifamily, 24 units per acre. And you can see by that color, this neighborhood has the same problem as the Walker Park neighborhood in that it was developed many years ago in much of a single family pattern, but it's zoned multifamily use. To the south, it's also zoned a portion of the property I-1 and also multifamily use, while it retains a single family and small multifamily character. And to the east is part of to the north and east is actually the boundary of 2 master plans that the city has conducted. The downtown neighborhood master plan to the north and the Walker Park neighborhood master plan to the east. The blue that you see along the west of School Avenue there is the boundary of the Walker Park master plan, and that blue indicates the downtown general zoning district, while the teal indicates the Main Street Center zoning district. It gives you context of what the surrounding zoning is. The property also has access along 11th Street to School Avenue. It's about 250 feet west of School Avenue, there where the small catering place is located at the corner. The applicant originally requested to zone this property RMF 24. If you just simply look at the colors on the zoning map, the orange, filling in the orange doesn't seem to be too big of an issue. However, when staff looked at this particular application and visited the neighborhood, we saw that in context, we did not feel that approximately 9-acre tract of single-use multifamily zoning would be appropriate at this site. The future land use plan shows this as a city neighborhood area, which does indicate that is predominantly residential in use. So we anticipate future use of this site would be predominantly residential. However, it also encourages and supports low-intensity non-residential use. All development patterns on this property that should have an urban flavor to it with buildings closer to the street. That's what our master plans support and the city plan 2025 supports at this location, with parking hidden behind, and really a project that is compatible, livable, and accessible to the rest of the neighborhood that benefits from and adds value to the neighborhood as opposed to detracting from. Staff did not support the original request to RMF 24. We found that particular request was incompatible with this particular neighborhood, even though the zoning districts directly adjacent to it wouldn't necessarily indicate so at first glance. We felt it would more likely result in a development form that was not consistent with our City Plan 2025. A couple of days before the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant did discuss with us other options for zoning districts that staff might support, and we felt the downtown general, which is between neighborhood conservation and Main Street Center in terms of intensity. If you remember the long discussion in the downtown area, Downtown General was still predominantly residential, but it was between, in terms of intensity, between neighborhood conservation and Main Street Center in terms of intensity and density. We felt that particular zoning district would be appropriate in this area, and it would extend the Downtown General, much like the Downtown General is extended closer to Walker Park on the east side of School Avenue. This would extend the Downtown General west and hopefully provide a compatible use that would transition to the adjacent neighborhoods. Surrounding land uses are really varied in this particular site. To the north includes the co-op, some industrial type uses that have been here for many decades. To the east are primarily retail uses along South School, restaurants. A new Dollar General store is under construction currently. It also includes some small warehousing businesses along the west side of School Avenue. To the south and west are also multifamily and single family, but the predominant use in this site, which is very unique in Fayetteville, is the National Cemetery, which is located along the west and south boundaries of this property. The Planning Commission did recommend in favor of the Downtown General Zoning District, finding that it would produce, or at least enable, a project on this site that would be compatible with the rest of the neighborhood, while it would create a pedestrian-friendly streetscape. The Downtown General Zoning District has specific, it's a form-based zoning district, so it has specific design standards built into that zoning district that an applicant must comply with. I think I've told all of you this at the agenda session, and those of you who went on the tour, staff's not advocating any one project and development on this particular site. We haven't seen a project that as of yet we would support. And that's not really the point tonight, although that's a lot of the discussion that we're hearing in the neighborhood, is what kind of project and what kind of use this particular applicant brings to the table. From our perspective, we're looking at the long-term zoning of the property and what would be most appropriate, whether this developer develops it or someone else comes along. And we, from that perspective, looking at our future land use plan, that's a citywide plan, we felt the Downtown General use would be appropriate on this particular site. And thus we recommended denial of RMF 24, but in support of Downtown General for this property. Planning Commission voted 6-1, with Commissioner Cave voting no on this particular site.
What questions? Sure.
What is the blue or purple or whatever it is goes along School Street?
That is Downtown General.
Downtown General?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy, following up on her question, what is the green or lighter green?
On the north side?
No, to the, onto the
East.
east in the Walker neighborhood plan.
That is P1 institutional. That's actually where the park's located. So that's an
Okay.
institutional use.
What
The
about the
dark green up north of Spout Spring Branch is neighborhood conservation.
It's neighborhood conservation?
That's correct.
So it's just right adjacent to what we're looking at. It's very comparable distance-wise from where this property is.
It's across, of course, it's across the creek, but yes, if you look in context, when you think about zoning as a sort of the nucleus where there's more intensity in the center, we did that in our downtown as well. We created a downtown core, which is kind of where we're sitting today. Surrounding that was Main Street Center, which you can see a portion of that there where the co-op sits today. Downtown General is sort of the next density and intensity in the neighborhood conservation, or the neighborhoods surrounding. It does include neighborhood conservation in the downtown, at least, includes the uses are primarily single family and two family, but it does include some non-residential uses by virtue of the fact that they were already there in the downtown area.
Okay?
I have a question
Sure.
about the streets. Can you, so we're looking at the gray part as the proposed rezoning area. And it looks like 11th Street goes on the south side of it, and is that government? Government is on the west side, but, so that's what hooks into Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is government. Are there lights being proposed at 11th and School and Government and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard? I'm just thinking about traffic. So how, if you deny RMF 24, but Downtown General would allow that same amount of density, is that right?
The downtown, yes, theoretically. The Downtown General, RMF 24 or Downtown General allows, both allow residential uses. The Downtown General doesn't have a density limitation. What it has is height and building or lot use limitation. So what you can fit on it in terms of the building height and the parking requirements is really what the limitation is. And it really supports, downtown general zoning districts support higher intensity residential uses. They're still going to be more dense than a neighborhood conservation, and probably approaching the density of RMF 24, RMF 12 in terms of density. But those type of, as you can notice from this map, those type of zoning districts are typically in relatively close proximity to arterial streets, or at least have access to arterial streets. And so that's why I made the point, essentially, and on the tour we noted that it's about 500 feet from 200 to 500 feet from two primary arterials within the city. To the point about traffic signalization, no, the city doesn't have any plans on signalizing those intersections. If a development comes through, that's something that we always look at to see if signalization is warranted, what street improvements are warranted, off-site street improvements, traffic calming, all those things are part of a development review, and we would expect a traffic study related to that specific development.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Do the petitioners have any comments they'd like to make?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. My name is Bob Estes, and I represent your applicant, Campus Crest. The request is to downzone from I-1 to downtown general. This is to downzone to a less intense use to preserve the neighborhood and ensure a traditional urban design in what is now an I-1 zoning district. Your applicant held a pre-submittal meeting with members of the ward. That meeting was attended by your two council members from that ward, and this past week your applicant held a neighborhood meeting with members of the neighborhood. Your staff supports this request, and your applicant is here to have this rezoning before you for your consideration on this, the first reading. Your planning commission recommends that you pass this ordinance. Upon a rezoning request, the appropriate consideration and the appropriate topic for discussion is land use. Although I anticipate that much of the public comment this evening will be directed toward permitted uses, a discussion of permitted uses is not permissible at a rezoning. Only land use considerations are permissible. Land use development has shifted significantly since 1930, when the Washington County sale barn was first placed in operation on this site. The requested downtown general zoning is compatible with the surrounding properties and is consistent with the neighborhood area land use designation that you have established. The requested zoning is further consistent with the city's adopted land use plan, which you have approved and adopted, and with the City Plan 2025, which you have approved and adopted. The zoning that is being requested will result in a development form that will ensure a traditional urban design and will provide pedestrian-friendly streetscapes, which also provide the potential for uses compatible with the established single-family neighborhood to the south and the non-residential uses that exist to the north and to the east. This is not the case with the existing I-1 zoning designation. There are no design standards that exist for the I-1 zoning designation as it presently exists. In addition, the requested downtown general designation is a form-based designation. And by that I mean it contains more design standards than RMF 24 and is far more preferable than the existing I-1 designation. This is the reason your staff and your planning commission finds that the rezoning request for the property is justified and needed and is necessary, and that the existing I-1 zoning designation is not consistent with the neighborhood area land use designation. This is because there are no height restrictions that exist in the present I-1 zoning designation. There are no design standards that exist in the present I-1 zoning designation, and permitted uses include heavy commercial and above-ground petroleum storage facilities and manufacturing. Your staff further finds that the proposed zoning will not create an undesirable impact to public services. Your staff supports the request, your planning commission supports the request, and it is for these reasons that your applicant requests a due pass of the ordinance, downzoning the property from I-1, heavy commercial, light industrial, to downtown general. Now, present with me this evening are representatives from Campus Crest. Mr. Alex Eisen, who is the regional development partner, is here. Mr. Chris Russ, who is the development manager, is here. Mr. David Jorgensen with Jorgen and Associates, the civil engineer, is here. His son, Blake Jorgensen, is here with us. And Mr. Randy Tolbert from Peters and Associates, the traffic engineer, is here. Mr. Steve Bartholomew, Mr. Billy Joe Bartholomew's son, who is the property owner, is here this evening with us. He is not an applicant, and he may speak in public comment. Because one salient consideration that you may consider in a rezoning request is traffic, I would encourage you to allow our traffic engineer, Mr. Tolbert, to speak briefly when I sit down in a moment. Rather than the other representatives speak and make a presentation, they are available to answer any questions you may have now, or they're available to answer any questions that you may have at the close of public comment, as I am also available at your pleasure to come back and answer any questions you may have. I'd ask that Mr. Tolbert come forward and make a brief presentation regarding the traffic issues, because that is a salient consideration for you this evening.
Okay.
I'm Randy Tolbert with Peters and Associates, and we were hired to do a comprehensive traffic impact study relating to the development as proposed. We looked at existing traffic counts, added the site-generated traffic counts to that, plus Hill Place traffic counts, and looked at the capacity and level of service on that. And as Ms. Lewis, you asked earlier, we did look at traffic signal warrants for projected conditions, and they were not met for the projected conditions at either intersection of Martin Luther King and Government or School Avenue and 11th Street. And if y'all have any
What was
other
not
questions,
met?
I can answer any.
Would you repeat that? I don't think she
Oh,
quite...
the warrants were not met.
Yeah, the traffic signal warrants
Okay.
were not met
Okay.
for projected traffic conditions.
Okay.
What questions do we have? Mr. Tolbert? Anything?
Well, I'll just follow up on that, and that was based on 500 students, I understand? Or 500?
Yes, ma'am. It was 500, just above 500 students.
Are we going to get a copy of that?
Yeah, we can provide that.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
My question might be more for Jeremy. With the current zoning being industrial, what is the potential for increase in traffic if we saw a maximum impact project built there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
It's actually for Jeremy. Jeremy, did you hear me? Should I repeat that?
Question is about the maximum impact, or impact in traffic with the maximum industrial type, warehousing type development. I think generally we don't see a great volume of traffic associated with warehousing, industrial type uses. It's usually more the type of traffic. Truck related is usually what you see. Like I-1, we have a lot of different uses in I-1. You can have retail uses. So for instance, the Taco Bell, McDonald's at Hollywood and Martin Luther King, that's all zoned I-1. It always was, and that's what it retains its zoning as. So those type of uses are currently allowed within that zoning district. Usually a larger tract of I-1 I would anticipate would be utilized more for a smaller warehousing type use, especially one that's not located at the corner of a very busy intersection. So my anticipation would be that it would be lower than a general mixed use or retail or residential type of use, even a single family. If you compared it to a single family neighborhood, it would likely be lower than that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Now, I guess we will open it up for public comment. Now, Kid, I want to get a couple of ground rules here. Now, if I understand what we're discussing here tonight is the rezoning. We can't talk, what about talking about a development that, is that Can we talk about density of the rezoning?
You certainly can do that, as Alderman Petty was asking about, with maximum density.
Right.
So certainly, it's a fair zoning consideration to look at what could be built here if you did rezone, all the way from the most dense to the least dense and any other sort of use that you would be concerned about. So you can't think about, or should not really discuss a particular project, even if the project has been disclosed by the applicant to the neighborhood, for example. But you can look at what kind of projects could be built here if you rezoned it, including a project that would have substantial density.
So when we do public comment, folks, what I want you to do is focus on the rezoning, and you can discuss density, but I think a particular project being singled out, it would not be exactly permissible. Is that correct, Kid? Is that a fair statement?
I think that's correct, Mayor.
So when you get off on a project, I'm going to get you back on the rezoning. I want y'all to understand that. But you can talk about the density of this particular zone, correct? Or traffic concerns.
And they could talk about what possible projects could be built.
Fair enough.
But not a particular project.
Right, that's what I want to convey here to you. Now, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Now, everybody gets one turn at the microphone unless an alderman brings you up to ask you questions, okay? So, be as brief as you can, and when you talk to somebody, you talk to me. Don't get into a little confrontation with anybody in the audience. You deal directly with me, talk to me, and everything will be everything. Be as brief as you can, and let's take it one person at a time. Who will be first? Introduce yourself and you come to the microphone.
Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Ron Butler. I represent the Regional National Cemetery Improvement Corporation. The Regional National Cemetery Improvement Corporation, in concert really with the neighborhood, we're opposed to any type of commercial development in that area. We would really like to see that piece of real estate be added to the National Cemetery. Now, currently, we have some land, but that would keep us open for a long time. Okay, I wish to, and at one time there was, I'll strike that remark because it doesn't match what you said. As I told the folks at the neighborhood meeting, the RNCIC is here for the long haul. We're not going away. We're going to keep the National Cemetery open as long as we possibly can. So thank you for your opportunity to present our views. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, yes. Hang on.
Ron? Mr. Butler?
Yeah.
I understand that this property has been offered or presented to your group on several occasions for sale. Do you see it being realistic that you would ever have the funding necessary to expand there?
You can't rule us out. That's sort of the bottom line. Now, has it been offered to us? Not to my knowledge. There's been some discussions with a former officer of the RNCRC and the property owner. I just don't know what the results of that discussion were, or if there was even a detailed discussion. Now, can we gather up enough money? I don't know. You know, we can do our best. We've been reasonably successful. We purchased 25 plots of land, had it cleared, and transferred to the federal government. Otherwise, that national cemetery would have been closed already.
Okay, thank you.
Who will be next?
Council, my name is Otto Keller, and I'm from Rogers, Arkansas. I'm a member of the Northwest Arkansas Honor Guard. We do military funerals at the National Cemetery, which in our opinion is very sacred ground. The history of our cemetery goes back many, many years to all men and women that have been asked to do things that Christian people should not have been asked to do, but they did. And today, we still are a free nation. We ask that you not pass this zoning because of them and keep this ground holy and sacred. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Mr. Mayor, I'm Jim Buckner, retired Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army. I'm currently the Senior Vice Commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, Department of Arkansas. I'm here to speak in opposition to the rezoning. As was just said a moment ago, this is sacred and holy ground to us veterans, to us who are planning on being buried there, and the 7,963 persons buried there already. Anytime you have a cemetery, particularly a military national cemetery, by the way, this is on a par with Arlington. This should be sacred ground all around it. In fact, right now, the residential neighborhood, even the sale barn, you know, which is a little stinky and noisy at times, has been a fairly good neighbor through the years. But I'm afraid with commercial development around the neighborhood of the Fayetteville National Cemetery, particularly if it goes into student housing or multi-dwellings, is going to be a terrible neighbor for our national cemetery. In fact, it would only be a beer can throw away from those beautiful stones out there recognizing our veterans who have died in the defense of our nation. So I appeal to you this evening to deny this rezoning. Let me just review for you, and I'll be as brief as I can. The 7,963 patriots buried at the Fayetteville National Cemetery, again, on a par with Arlington. There are 1,227 unknown Civil War veterans and 532,000 known veterans, for a total of 2,059 Civil War veterans buried there. And by the way, I'm not going to cover them all. The Revolutionary War, there are 2 veterans buried there. Spanish-American War, 127. World War I, 1,274. World War II, 2,847. The Vietnam War, 846. Iraq War, 6. That gives you just a brief summary, and that's not all of them. That's not all the wars we've fought. But that is holy and sacred ground to us veterans. And anything around there that would be a disturbance to the tranquility of that holy ground would not be permissible. And I urge you to deny this rezoning. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Shirley.
Are there any Korean veterans there?
Yes, ma'am. Let me tell you how many. Well, you know what? On my list, Korea was omitted.
Well, my
I've
husband
got
would be
Iraq,
most
World War II,
upset.
Lebanon, Mexican, and everything. But on my list, Korea's not here. I'm sorry. I
We
wish
need
I
to
had.
call my dad.
Wish I had that.
My husband.
But I'm sure there are several hundred. That was a major war. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
And it also may relate to the man that spoke before. Have you all been in contact with Bozeman's office, or I'm trying to get an idea of the efforts to expand in that area?
I talked to Steve Gray today,
Okay.
and he's been in conversation with Congressman Bozeman today, and they've urged that we try our best to stave off this rezoning to give us all a chance to purchase that land. There are private resources, I'm not sure if state, but there certainly are federal resources that can be brought to bear in this, and it will take a little time, and I think you know that. But if we can just stave off this rezoning at this time, it will give us that time, and I will be in the forefront of that fundraising. And I don't know how many people know me, but I've raised a lot of funds for patriotic events and things like that. And in accordance with, or in conjunction with our other veteran service organizations, I believe we can raise the money
that would purchase that land.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Kathy Casita, and I live at 1227 Southwest Avenue, less than a block from the sale barn. Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Or maybe just to clarify? This bid to rezone has been proposed by Campus Crest, correct? I mean, they're the ones who want to rezone it, Campus Crest?
Is that correct, Jeremy? Yes, it is.
Okay. And they came and showed us their plans. I know that they have shared their plans with you, but we're not allowed to talk about that, even though that's their business of building 192 apartments, that we're not supposed to mention that.
Well, you can talk about density, but
Yeah,
you
but
can't talk
what I'm
about any
asking you is...
particular project.
Yeah, okay, even though that, okay. All right. I bought my house about 3 years ago. It was a rundown house, and I spent about $18,000. Me and my children did the repairs ourselves. I have 5 children. They all went to the University of Arkansas. Since that time, there have been 4 other houses on my block, on West Avenue, that have also been fixed up. And I think that all of you agree that is what we want to see for South Fayetteville, for the neighborhood. It is a single-family neighborhood. That's why I bought my house there. I used to live on North Oakland, where it is a lot of student housing. It's very noisy. There's cars screeching. And I actually was an apartment manager and rented mostly to students. I love students. I love kids. I have 5 kids. They're already grown, so they're at that age. I don't think that our neighborhood is compatible with a large multifamily kind of complex that could possibly go into this area. The sale barn was there since 1936. The cemetery has been there since 18-something. So our neighborhood grew up around it. Since then, if you look at the zoning, no, the commercial zoning isn't appropriate because things have changed in our neighborhood. But the zoning did not change. I think in the 70s they came through and made some RMF for our whole neighborhood. My house, my neighbors' houses, all the way to Pinnacle Foods is all RMF 24. Yet most of the development is single-family housing. There's a few duplexes and 1 small apartment building with 15 units. And so I think that the current zoning is inappropriate. The RMF 24 is inappropriate, the commercial is inappropriate, the commercial zoning of the sale barn. I think that there could be a lot of issues with traffic that a large development could bring, noise, which could affect my neighborhood, my street, as far as driving. I don't understand how, I'm not sure what the traffic guy was exactly saying, the traffic report, but I don't see how a large development could not have a high impact on our neighborhood. I ask that you do not zone it to downtown general. I respectfully request that you consider to zone our neighborhood, the sale barn property, to neighborhood conservation. I think that that would fit our neighborhood. I would like to preserve the integrity of our small neighborhood. We are a small neighborhood. We're a modest neighborhood. The houses are modest. Because of that, you're not going to see 30 or 40 neighbors here tonight. It's just not going to happen. There's a lot of elderly people, working people that can't make it to this meeting or maybe unwilling to come. We've had 2 meetings. Both times there was a presentation by a developer. Everybody there did not like that, the proposal. There was one gentleman that was in favor. I have talked to many, many neighbors. They would really like to see this stay as a single-family neighborhood. And I think that would change if it was downtown general, which could allow a possible 24 units per acre. Is that correct, though? Downtown general could allow 24 units per acre. So we do respectfully ask that you consider neighborhood conservation. There were some people here, I think, if you don't mind, I would like to have a show of hands of everybody that is against the rezoning. Can you show you against the rezoning?
Okay.
So we do have a lot of people out tonight, and I hope you will take our considerations. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kay.
Kid, a question?
Yes.
Kit, it's my understanding that the property owner had to file the rezoning request. Is Campus Crest acting on behalf of Mr. Bartholomew in this case?
Sometimes there can be a offer to purchase that's contingent upon rezoning, and then the actual applicant, I think in this case is the Crest, is that? So they probably, there probably is, they're either acting as an agent for them, or else they have some offer to purchase that's contingent upon the rezoning, and they're basically doing it for themselves, but it's contingent upon getting the kind of zoning they want for their whatever project they might want to propose.
I'm Robert Reed from Bentonville, Arkansas, and I'm a member of American Legion Post 100, and I'm opposed to it. There are a lot of families that come there to be quiet, and where they have loved ones buried, and I think high-density apartments attract young people, and I know being young myself once, young people love to party, and I can see a loud atmosphere that would interfere with the peace and contemplation of those that have survivors of those that are buried there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Leonard Schulte, and I live at 1235 Southwest Avenue, a couple blocks south of the sale barn property. And I want to pretty much agree with everything that Kathy, my neighbor, has already said. Plus, I think that given the concerns of the National Cemetery plus our own neighborhood, it seems like whatever development goes in there should have a buffer zone created between the whatever existing structures they have there and the cemetery, and between that and the neighborhood. And that might, if that were possible to have something like that, that would perhaps indicate what kind of development could be there. But I, on the other hand, support, I would love to see the whole neighborhood change to neighborhood conservation. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for your time. Sorry my father couldn't be here. By the way, my name is Steve Bartholomew. My dad's not available. He's out on a business meeting tonight. But the livestock auction will hold its last sale June the 25th of this month. We've been there a long time. It's kind of hard for all of us. This is hard for me to stand up here, and I appreciate your time. Not too long ago, Campus Crest, a company has approached my dad to buy this property. We've had several in the past approach, and they kind of come and go. My dad's checked them out thoroughly. This is a good company. They have the funds and are willing and ready to buy our piece of property. I do hope the rezoning is approved. I understand the veterans has an interest in our property, but there has been no contact with us on a dollar amount of this property with these people. So basically, I'm just here to kind of support rezoning it.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Yes, sir.
I've been told, and I'm just wondering if you know, maybe your dad, but that on different occasions that the sale barn or your dad had offered this property, or knowing that the cemetery might want it someday. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I do know that they have talked, but there's not ever been a dollar amount put on anything. And, you know, we've been there a long time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I'm Robert Williams. I live at 957 South Hill. Congratulations, Mayor Jordan.
Thank you, Robert.
It's nice to see new faces on the board and some of the ones that are familiar. If you'll recall, back in the late spring of 2008, when we met to discuss the defunct Aspen Ridge project becoming Hill Place, one of the concerns I brought before you that evening was that this has been a single-family neighborhood since the 1800s, and filling it with apartments will lead to the eventual outcome of our neighborhood resembling those on the northern side of the U of A, and no offense to that neighborhood intended. If this current project is approved, it will be a dagger in the heart of our neighborhood. If this is approved, on what basis could the next complex be turned down on? Since the Korean War, returning veterans have been met with varied emotions. However, I never could have conceived the thought that our returning veterans from Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom would be branded as terrorists by our own government or potential terrorists. And I found out that right here in Washington and Madison counties, there are 42,000 veterans, including Councilman Farrell. And death is the most democratic institution ever invented, ever conceived, because there's a guaranteed 100% voter turnout, and we all get to cast our vote. I believe it'll even exceed American Idol's final tally. Hebrews 9:7 states that it is appointed once the man to die and then the judgment. And if you think about it, wars do not increase death. They may hasten it, but they do not increase it. And you know that I've told you in the past that it's, you know, people in the neighborhood, you get acquainted with them, you know their names, you borrow their stuff, you'll see about their stuff when they're gone on vacation. My quiet neighbors are, though, to the east of me. I value their company very much, and when I get the chance, I go up there and visit with them, because every tombstone tells a different story and a different life that's been passed. And I want to let you know that I never get tired of hearing taps. And I've even heard tell that the pearly gates are guided by United States Marines. I want to say that I, or no one opposing this apartment complex, is calling into question anyone involved in the proposed project.
Mr. Williams, you need to stay with the rezoning.
I'm going
Not get into the apartment complex.
But I want to say that none of us are questioning their patriotism. Mr. Estes is a veteran himself. Why would I want to bring into question his patriotism or his family's? He has two brothers serving overseas right now. What I oppose is the project. I believe money can be raised to purchase the 8.7 acre lot. I did ask Mr. Bartholomew for a figure. He said submit a proposal. But the question put before the council this evening is infill. Are you going to infill that with veterans or 4-story apartments? This is a little off the mark, but one other thing I'd like to comment that I commented on in the spring of '08. The last thing I commented on that evening before you guys decided was that in an election year with no certain winner, there's historically been a deep downturn in our economy. That's on tape. Now we're there. And with that said, I believe that now we are 18 months to 2 years away from double-digit inflation and the end of the Carter administration and the beginning of the Reagan. And Mayor Jordan, I urge you to study the city directors from Mr. Orton through Mr. Nolan, how they handled the city finances during those dark days so you can be preemptive.
I would like to add that in closing, I would like to state that part of the problems brought on by the Aspen Ridge Hill Place project have not been resolved, including the drainage problems behind my own home. And perhaps it would be wise to see Hill Place totally completed and up and running for a year before making a decision that would add 500 more students to our neighborhood. Thank you for your time, and God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm Harold Harris. I did 32 years in the Navy. I was in three wars, and I think we've heard enough that we need a cemetery. I'm 88 years old. I want some like I have beat to be this old. But there's a lot of my senior gone, and we need that cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to say I am from Babermont. I'm a Roger, Arkansas. I'm the Northwest Army Guard. Also, I was at American Legion Foundation. I would like the people that own the lot to get American Legion more time to get donations to buy the lot. I have been with American Legion for about 17 years. I have seen a lot of graves put in this cemetery. Hopefully someday I'll be there myself. We thank you. We could let you consider this, and I am a Korean veteran. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else?
Hello, my name is Wanda Peterson. Hello to all of you on the board. If I may say so, the sale barn has been there since 1936. Well, I have been here since 1936, within 2 blocks of that. I've lived within 2 blocks of the cemetery all my life, except for 1 year. And so I have a particular interest in it. I could tell you a lot of little stories that go along with it, but I won't. Anyway, I would like to see the zoning put off. I was in contact this morning with a friend of mine who is retired from the Defense Department, and he's going to look in and contact the graves and commission on graves and their advisory committees, and I'd like to hear back from him. We don't know. I know that there's several people that want to keep this cemetery and expand it. I think it would be a beautiful addition to that part of the city. And I think the rest of this, should the cemetery be able to expand, it would be a wonderful thing to see Forgive me, but I buried my husband last August 4th up there, and I plan to be buried there. My parents are in that cemetery, and probably my 3 brothers will also be there. And it's one of these things I just can't bear to think of an apartment building shadowing those graves. I guess that's all I want to say, except please do not pass this rezoning as it's been proposed tonight. We just need time, and I think with a little time we can raise the money. We'd like to have a figure. We still haven't been able to get that as to what would be satisfactory. But please, do not pass this. It's going to be a blight on Fayetteville if it is, and this thing goes through. As it happens, I know that the Hill Place is having trouble they still are lacking 350 in their rentals right now. So these things ought to be taken into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bradley Wolford. I live on the corner of 13th and Southwest. My parents live adjacent to me. I think the current city zoning is already inappropriate. To my east is that single home, to my west is a single home, to my north, and I'm going to be going 7 houses up, or 8, and it's going to be a 24 unit. I think the zoning up on the map is already inappropriate. It doesn't match what's in the neighborhood. The colors up there doesn't actually match what we're living with, and I just hope the city doesn't try to cram too much stuff in that small area.
Okay, thank you. Who else?
Hello, I'm Dustin Bartholomew. I live in Ward 4. My family, Bartholomew family, are the sellers of the property, and I just want to reiterate, that the rezoning tonight is about is a downzoning from industrial to downtown general, and I just wanted to reiterate that because the things that could be built there at this time, I think if the council considers that and considers the fact that the things that could be built there at this time would be a lot more damaging than what could be, what's being proposed, I just want you guys to consider that. The sale barn has been the livelihood of my family for the last 70 years, and now the livelihood, a lot depends on this sale going through, and I just want you guys to consider that. Thank you.
Shirley, do you have a question? Okay, thank you. Come on, guys. Come on, y'all. Whoever's going to be...
My name is Scott Test. I'm a representative for the Elks Lodge National Commission. I want to echo what has already been said. I'd like to make one more point to the council and mayor. The economic impact that this can have on this area by bringing in, and I know I can't say what it is, but everybody knows. I don't know what the percentage is of empty units in northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville, Springdale. Any more building like this is going to hurt what's already there. And on down the road, we're going to see a lot of businesses and a lot of apartments and a lot of homes that are going to be sitting vacant because we keep building without thinking about tomorrow. But think about what impact will it have on the people who have been here before and have been here for years and built this city, and then bring in outsiders. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else? No one? Okay, come on, y'all.
Hello, everybody. I should begin with a disclaimer of some kind. I'm John Compston. My dad was Milo Compston. A lot of you up there know that I work for one of our media outlets, but I'm not speaking for that media outlet right now, and I would hope that we wouldn't use my remarks. But I am here because of my dad. And if he was still alive, and some of you may know, we lost him in April. If he was still alive, he would certainly be here today. And I was watching this at home, and I thought, I better get up and go down and at least represent his position as I think he would have represented it here today, and add my voice and my dad's voice to this proceeding, to this issue, what's going on here. Some of you may know that my dad worked long and hard to keep the National Cemetery open so that it could receive veterans. It was going to close in 1986. It's not closed now. And that's due to the efforts of not just my dad, but others like him who thought that this was critical to this town and to this region, this area, and to our country, to keep a place like this open. And he worked long and hard, and he lived long enough to see yet another parcel gained by the National Cemetery. And I would just be remiss if I didn't step up here today and represent him. And that's where he is right now, as a matter of fact. That's where he always wanted to be eventually, and that's where he is. But he felt so strongly that we should have a place for veterans. We should have a place, and that place should be open. It should not close. We should just never be in a situation where we had to turn away a single service person that had donned a uniform in the service of this country. We should never have to turn someone like that away. And I'm not as good a speaker as my dad, and I certainly am not fit to tie his shoes and say nothing of standing them. But I do want his voice represented here today. I do want his voice and my voice added to those who would urge the council to think long and hard about the implications of what they do here tonight and how things go in that neighborhood. Consider the interests of the people that live there. Consider the interests of the people who no longer live, but who are there and who will remain there in perpetuity. And consider the interests of the people who we wish it wouldn't happen, but it will, who may end up needing that place sooner than later. And I do sympathize with the folks that own the sale barn. I don't want to stand up here and ignore their interests, the fact that they've been there for a long time, that it is their property. I've talked to those people myself, and I know them to be good people. But whatever we can do for the benefit of our service members, living and dead, I think we should do. And I think that the National Cemetery is an integral part of this community, of this region, and of our country, and that we have to, at some point in time, we have to ask ourselves what is more important. Is revenue more important? Is, what's more important? Bottom line. So I ask the council to consider that, to consider the value of this sacred place and the value of it as a place that is open and available to our service members when it comes their time to rest. And I say that on behalf of myself and on behalf of my father. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
I'll make it short. My sentiments are with
Would you introduce yourself?
already spoken.
Would you introduce yourself?
Almost was buried in the Pacific. I'd much rather be buried down here if we can find room for me. I'm only 82. It may run out before I get down there. I appreciate it if you would consider delaying it, at least giving us a chance to see what we can come up with. We haven't even talked with the owner as far as I know. I believe we can come up with the money. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Who else?
We've got more than 700 signatures against the proposal that's been offered, and we'll have more by the next meeting. This is a national shrine on the National Register of Historic Places. It really is an amazing place, and it draws people here. People come to visit, whether they have relatives and friends buried here or not, and you can find them there. And they look for Civil War graves and various things that they relate to in many different ways. Obviously, it's incompatible with many different possible uses that could go there. So I want to renew what the others have said about we would like to see this neighborhood conservation, and we would like to see the chance for the veterans to raise the money. And I know a lot of people have told me they're contributing. A lot of us are contributing to help them raise the money. I am a military, 8 years in the reserve. I'm not a combat veteran, so I don't think of myself as serving the way these guys did. But some of them almost gave their lives, and plenty of others did. There is one thing that nobody's mentioned. There is a family, a black family cemetery immediately south of the National Cemetery. It's not getting much care right now. You may remember former JP, Justice of the Peace, Jesse Bryant's late husband, who died just about a year ago, I believe. He used to care for it. Right now, it's not getting enough care. It takes volunteers to do it. But that would also be vulnerable to all the things that would be inappropriate about certain kinds of zoning adjacent to this property. It is right there. So please, please consider carefully, as some have said, what we do with this property. And we will continue to discuss it with anybody and meet with anybody, but I hope we can save it for that use of the National Cemetery. Any question?
Where is that cemetery, Aubrey?
You see the circle on the map in the tan?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
That's the National Cemetery property.
Yeah, yeah.
It's immediately.
Somebody put a little trick.
Well, I'll get with you later and you can show me where it is.
Well, it's immediately south of that circle.
Oh, okay.
Just down. See that line across there?
Mhm. Uh-huh.
That's an extension of 11th Street that's never been built. And then 11th Street picks up right past it, and then 11th Street runs over, crosses the town branch from Hill to Duncan. And when there was a mobile home park, 11th Street was the street that ran in the mobile home park. It's constantly breaking up across town. Many of our streets do that because of terrain.
Yeah.
So it's called Oak Cemetery.
Oak?
Oak. And back in the days of segregation, Fayetteville, we're proud of the fact that we desegregated our schools early here, but many black people still choose to be buried in the cemetery where their forebears were buried when they couldn't be buried in a white, so-called white cemetery. There are a lot of families I've talked to in the black community who have ancestors and relatives in the Oak Cemetery as well as in the National Cemetery. There are black veterans and people of all races have fought for our country over the years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Aubrey. Can you or someone else, maybe I have a question about, do you know how many people visit the National Cemetery, or have you talked with people about that?
Well, I'll say something and see if someone else has a comment. On Memorial Day, there was a ceremony at 10 a.m. and there have been obviously over 1,000 people there for that ceremony. But I came back through the neighborhood a few times that way, and there were people coming later. Most of those people left after the ceremony. They'd been there for a couple hours. But people kept coming all that day. There are always visitors there every day. And one particular man I met was from the Dakotas. He was a retired man. He had traveled from the Dakotas. This was his idea of a vacation, looking for the grave of a particular Civil War veteran who was one of his forebears or a great-great uncle or something. And he found it with the help of the very good staff there.
Anything else? Thank you.
But they would have some, they have some count at the cemetery because there's a sign-in sheet, but most people don't even walk into the headquarters when they go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Rob Sharp. I live in the Walker Park neighborhood and work near this site. This is certainly a very difficult issue, and I think that whoever did the zoning in 1972 created this train wreck of having a single-family neighborhood, a national cemetery that's truly sacred ground, and this area has seen a lot of transitions, and some have been good and some have been bad. And I would hate to have to try to make a decision on whether to rezone this property. I think that it's always troubled me that we have a sale barn and cattle right next to the cemetery. The smells and noise are a problem, and I think that it's sad as it is to see an institution like the sale barn close. I think it was never a good fit with the neighborhood or the cemetery. And I would hope that the developer and our award-winning planning department could come up with a zoning or a planning situation with buffer strips or some kind of standards where a development that we could be proud of could be part of our cemetery, that could celebrate the cemetery rather than somehow turn its back on it. And I don't know what that solution is, and I would hope that I think that it's probably too big a piece of land just to zone it all one zoning designation anyway, and that maybe there could be some kind of compromise solution that could be offered by the purchaser of the property that would make us happy with what could be built there, and could also protect the neighborhood and most importantly, find a way to honor the cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else? All right, seeing we have no more public comment, I will bring it back to the council. Okay. Brenda?
Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah.
Well, I really have heard from some of the people that live there, and definitely would like to leave this on the first reading tonight. I think it's, we can tell there's a lot of emotion, a lot of comments to be made. This is so unique because, as Mr. Estes pointed out, we can only consider certain things, but having a 150-year plus cemetery, national cemetery, that is as historically significant as this one is, it's hard to not consider that in a rezoning around it. So somehow that's got to account for something. And I think we can consider traffic, and as Jeremy pointed out, whenever he was asked, the existing zone would not generate the amount of traffic that something that would be allowed in downtown general could generate. That was my understanding. So, I want time to kind of think about this some more and hear more from the public maybe between now and then. And this doesn't need to be rushed through. It's a really big decision, and so that's my sentiment. And I think Adela's that we at least leave this on the first reading tonight.
Okay.
Yes.
Dell, you want to make
Yes.
a comment or anything?
I agree completely. Brenda and I have talked about this a lot as we've listened to lots and lots of public comment, and actually it's just, as she says, it's a very serious decision, and we don't want to rush it. We want to give everyone time to do what they can do to be happy with the decision. So I would agree that we should leave it on the first reading tonight.
Okay. Sir?
I guess that's really, I'm glad to hear that. And I wanted to say thank you to folks for coming out and sharing your points of view. And I think that because this is land use, that we are able to discuss land use. I think that that's really the theme of the whole thing here. And the idea that this is a historic area. The sale barn was historic, and the cemetery is, of course, a historic site. So that needs to be considered those are the land uses that have been there, and we have a neighborhood with single-family housing all around there, that, as I think it's Miss Kathy mentioned, that the houses are being renovated. So this is, the idea that this, I was thinking about this, it's a down zoning. I keep hearing the word down zoning, but yet it'd be a zoning to match a really wrong zoning all around it. So it wouldn't even hardly be considered a down zoning. The whole place needs to be down zoned again. And so I think that since we can focus on land use, I think that that's the perfect discussion to be having, and thinking about all the land uses around this is really reveals some things for me. And I want to also ask if anyone knows how many cities in the country have a national cemetery. I mean, I know there's Arlington, but I think that maybe we take it for granted here, and I'm wondering if anyone knows.
We wouldn't find it.
You have to come back to the microphone.
That's something that could be found out between now and then.
We've already asked the question.
Since you mentioned Arlington, one of the things I forgot to mention a while ago is that this friend, and they live in Gainesville, Virginia, they were at Arlington this past Saturday, and he said it is almost landlocked. So they cannot expand as it is. We have an opportunity, I think, that's rare, because this is happening all over where the national cemeteries are, that they are becoming landlocked. This is a gem. It may need to be polished a little.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Matthew.
Really, two comments. First, to those who would like to see the cemetery expand there. You know, when Mr. Butler from the Regional National Cemetery Improvement Corporation can't confirm that you've had interest from major donors, I know that worries everyone who wants to see the cemetery expanding there. And we have a congressman here who claims he is supportive of the veterans, and I'd urge you to do everything possible over the next 3 weeks, because you've got 4 weeks before this decision is made, unless we advance it, to contact him and convince him to approve that. So go for it. That's on you. And then my other comment to the applicant, I think that the project you presented, I think that you've realized that Fayetteville insists projects be a little bit more unique than most of the things you've built around the rest of the country. I think you know that you'll have to be far more creative than you have been to make this go more smoothly. So I'd strongly urge you to be more creative and to work closely with planning staff to find ways to help mitigate some of these concerns.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so we will leave it on the first reading, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. 3 weeks, I'm sorry. We do have an off week, don't we? I'm not going to take a vacation to Wesley or something. All right. That far. All right. We have the, let's let everybody.
Let them know that the meeting's not over. They need to clap or whatever.
I will. I got it. All right, folks. We're still got the meeting.